So welcome back to our next episode of Legally Balanced Podcast. And today we have Dr. Kane Criswell here at the farm to talk about all about her practice and her being a woman-owned business. So Kara, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a plastic surgeon and I own my practice, Criswell & Criswell Plastic Surgery, with my husband, Brian Criswell. We've been in Charlotte about 18 years. I'm also the chairman of the Department of Plastic Surgery for Novant in Charlotte. I've been that since 2011, I think. So that's kind of interesting to be able to have kind of that crossover between private practice and also being involved in the medical community.
Yeah. So what do you do on the board?
So basically, I'm kind of the representative for the department. So other plastic surgeons, my colleagues, I will go and kind of be the representative for changes within the medical system. I set up the call schedule to make sure everybody's where they need to be.
Yeah.
And so it gives me a great opportunity to be able to be aware of what's going on with the hospital system, maybe a little bit sooner than I would if I was just in private practice.
Okay. So I've known Kara for a couple years now. We both have done some other media stuff together. And I just always loved that you were a female doctor. And we've talked about this being being in a male dominated industry. And because you don't meet very many women plastic surgeons. You just don't. So like do you have any female colleagues that...
So we're very lucky now in Charlotte to have several other female plastic surgeons here in town. I think when I was, currently I would say only about 20% of plastic surgeons are females. When I was in my residency and training, I didn't have any mentors that were female plastic surgeons. In fact, I've never operated even with another female plastic surgeon.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I know you've told me, but tell our viewers, what are the reasons for that? Like, why is it so male dominated?
So I think that all over medicine is, right? But I think with any of the surgical specialties, it's kind of the career path that you need to go through to get there. So what I did with mine was I did 4 years of medical school, 5 years of general surgery residency, and then 3 years of plastic surgery fellowship. And so that's a really long road for somebody. And so what does that do?
So how many years is that?
So
7? I can't do math very well. Yeah.
So it's like, it's 12 years of training and schooling.
Basically.
Right.
Okay.
And so the thing is, what that means is that you're getting out of your training and starting your career when you're already in your 30s. So you have to either delay marriage, delay child rearing till you're done training, or trying to do that while you're training is pretty challenging.
Did you go right into that after college?
I did.
So even if you do that, you're into your 30s before you're...
Absolutely.
So did you have kids in between?
So I had my first son my last year of fellowship, and that was pretty rough. And I had a fantastic chairman. Dr. Cohen was very proactive in having female residents in his program. He loves babies, was very supportive of everything, but it was super challenging because the work hours are bananas.
Yeah, what are the hours like?
So when I started my training, there were no hour restrictions for residents. So for the ACGME, they considered us to be students. So labor laws didn't apply. So when I started, it would be regularly, you'd be working 100 to 130 hours a week.
That's
you had
crazy,
no set day off. And then starting in 2003, there were some work regulation hours that started. So the maximum number of hours now is 80 hours a week, which is still pretty challenging if you've got...
That's still a lot, yeah. So you were pregnant during that. Were you still working that many hours? Were there any other women in your residency program?
So 2 years below me, there was one other resident, but she was not married. She didn't have kids at the time, so...
And that's for any doctor, right? You don't have to be a plastic, like all doctors go that route.
Right. They go through some training. I mean, it could be a medicine residency, might be 3 years, but the work hour restrictions are 80 hours. So be it a surgical specialty, a medicine specialty, but that's kind of your reported hours. And so if you think about it, when we were coming through training, that change of mentality of, you got to go home versus, what do you mean you're going home? You got to continue to care for the patient. I think even me going through during my training that change, I kind of looked down on that going home too early thing.
And so was your husband in the same program?
He was. So I met him in
Okay.
general surgery residency, and then he was 2 years ahead of me. So he finished his fellowship and went into private practice for 2 years, and then I finished my fellowship, and then we moved to Charlotte.
Gosh, yeah. So you own your own business.
We do.
And so what do you think are, or tell us some of the challenges that you faced just as a business owner in general?
Well, I mean, when you're going to medical school and residency, you're not trained how to run a business. You have no idea. And I didn't know anything about it. So it's kind of learn as you go. I think that initially with our practice, we wanted to hire people that had plastic surgery experience because we were pretty inexperienced in running the business. And then it's evolved into more of finding the people for your team that fit your work ethic, your dedication to patients, your sense of humor, and then you can train them to do what you want to do. And I think we have an amazing team of people working with us.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely the hardest part. Yeah. And I feel like being a business owner is not 9 to 5.
No.
You're working more.
Yeah.
So do you have like an office manager?
We do.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. Yeah.
See, that I feel like is the hardest role to fill.
Absolutely.
How long have you had your office manager?
So Carol was a nurse fresh out of nursing school when we hired her. So she was initially our nurse. And my father-in-law was our practice director.
Oh, yeah.
And then as she's spectacular, and she was with us, and she kind of learned everything about the business right from medical on up. And so we started grooming her to kind of take over for Victor. And she does a spectacular job. Like everybody loves her. Everybody respects her.
So how many years has she been with y'all?
Oh God, she'd kill me if 12 to 13, something like that.
And so your father-in-law, how long did he work for you guys?
He was with us from the beginning until she took over. So,
that's nice. Yeah. So I have my aunt that works for me, which is really nice because she's retired lieutenant colonel in the Army. So she helps to keep everybody in line.
Yes.
But I feel like that is the hardest, spot to fill. And have you guys ever wanted to have multiple locations or? We
had a second location in the South Park area. We had that for about 7 years.
Oh, okay.
When COVID hit, our lease was up, and where our office was sort of in like a retail area.
Got it.
And so when our lease was switching, they wanted to change us from medical rates to retail rates. And honestly, it just was a little divisive for the staff to have the two offices. So we got rid of that and moved everyone down to one office. And I think it just makes us more cohesive. It's much easier.
Oh yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I know we've been in that growth phase for a while, and so we've got the 6 locations, and it's really hard. Yeah, it's hard. I
can't even imagine 6. 2 was hard for me.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know, and I feel like and rent is outrageous.
Yeah.
We actually are negotiating 2 new rental spaces right now, and it's a lot. And so, have you ever had any doctors underneath y'all? No. Have y'all ever wanted to do that?
I think it's hard. I think it would be very hard for anybody to join the practice. I think that maybe at some point we'll consider it. But right now, I think both my husband and I are really type A, a little bit OCD about things. So I think that meticulous attention to detail is pretty necessary. It would take somebody pretty remarkable to come into that.
Are doctors hard to manage, do you think?
Oh, I would imagine. I mean, just being chairman is a complete pain sometimes. You're dealing with all these different personalities. And I think that I'm lucky enough and worked hard enough to develop a good working relationship with even some of the more challenging plastic surgeons. But we have great colleagues in town. I mean, we're really very lucky, very good surgeons in town.
I feel like, attorneys at least, we're all kind of like that type A, competitive. And so for me, I still like in practicing law, of course, but I do mostly case management, which is like managing the other attorneys, which is really hard. It's because attorneys want to be free agents. They just want to which doctors are probably very similar. Like they want to practice the way they want to practice. And as we've grown, we've had to develop like basically SOPs, like operating procedures for how the case should be run. Like, for example, like if you're going to do a surgery, like this is all the things you have to do, do with this technique. And So, and then it's my job to like enforce it and make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do and doing it the way we want it, which is really hard. And I've had other doctor friends say it's really hard to manage. I think lawyers and we're all we're a little crazy.
So is it harder to manage female lawyers or male lawyers?
So family law specifically, there's not a lot of guys.
Okay.
Like they just, a lot of, well, I feel like they just don't want to do family law.
Yeah.
It's so emotionally charged. There's not as many men practicing family law as there are women now.
Okay.
I think it just depends on the person.
Yeah.
I feel that's why we have to be, like you were talking about team members, like where I'm really picky about who we hire. And then we've even implemented like core values. Do y'all have that?
We do.
Like for your employees? Yeah. It's so important to have all those, I always say all the things because it's like, when you're developing your business and it's, like when it's just, it's just you and your husband, it's a lot simpler. You start adding other people. The more people you add in the mix, the more complicated it gets, the more procedure. I feel like we have to add a procedure for everything. Like even the inclement weather.
Absolutely.
I'm like, we're going to have to do an inclement weather SOP.
You have to have a protocol, an algorithm, everything.
Yeah. So that's, I feel like is what's challenging. And so how do you do work? So you have kids. Okay. And you have 2 boys. So tell us, do you find it challenging to be a woman in business and balancing being a mom and a wife?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no such thing as balance. Let's be real. Like you cannot have it all. It is a give and take. So whatever you're focusing on right there, something else is going neglected for a period of time. That's just the way it is. And anybody who says any different is not aware of what's going on around them or lying.
Yeah, exactly.
The way it is. You have mommy fails all the time, all the time. And I think that my kids are wonderful insofar as they understand that, yes, when I'm with them, I'm going to try to give 100%. But if there is a patient that needs me in an urgent fashion, they've never given me a hard time about that. Never once have they said, well, why didn't you come to my, school play at 3:00 in the afternoon? Well, I was operating, and they understand and they get it. And they seem to always have, and I don't know how I managed to do that, but they're wonderful. They're great kids.
Yeah. I think if you set the expectation, they know.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think, for me at least, I have to employ help. So, like family, nanny, we were talking about having somebody help clean, whatever you need. Like, I think that's the most important thing is you can't do it all.
No.
It's impossible.
No.
Like, so you have to, at least for me, I've tried to let go of the things that I can let go and prioritize your time. Right.
Yeah.
So, kids always, come first for sure. So it's, and I think, so do you want one of your kids to be a doctor?
I think that, I think I would support them if they wanted to do it. Neither of them have any interest. None.
Oh,
it's interesting. I think they've said, it's not that they're not interested. They've just said, you know what? I don't want to work as hard as you guys do.
Yeah. Oh.
So I think that they would both be excellent at it. But I don't have any ego invested in that at all.
Yeah.
Like whatever they want to do, whatever makes them happy in life is fine with me.
Okay. Yeah. I'm the opposite. I really want one of my kids. I'm like, we got to keep this firm going, guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I'm real big on like the legacy thing. I've got 4 kids. So hopefully one of them, I'm hoping my daughter, because I feel like girls are more likely to do what the mom does. Do you know what? I don't know.
That's probably true. Maybe.
But, I don't know. My 7-year-old has probably got he's the most like me. Like, so I feel like he'd probably be good, but I'm hoping one of them does. But because my sister is a lawyer too and works for me, which is really nice. It's nice to have family around in your business.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting because a lot of people that I talk to that are entrepreneurs, a lot of them do have family working for them. Like surprisingly, you think like, oh, don't mix family and business, but pretty much everybody that you really get down and talk to them, they've got some family member that works with them.
Well, you need to have a support system, you know, and I think that especially if you're having kids in the mix, having just people that you can trust and rely on is mandatory. I mean, mandatory.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned nannies. We've had nannies and some have been amazing and some have not been amazing. And
Yeah.
when they're not amazing, it can really knock the wheels off the
I
bus and the
know.
house. It really
I know.
can.
It's really hard to find a good nanny. It's really hard. I
It
don't know
is.
what it is, but yeah, we definitely, and my mom helps us a lot, but yeah, it's been, because when I first started the practice, it was just me for a long time until, because like my sister is younger than me, so she was in school, and so I had, years with nobody there, like really with me, and so now that I've got it's really nice. It's like reassuring to have somebody there that's, in your corner. You're not like alone and afraid.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
Well, when you were, so in law school though, what percentage of women what percentage of lawyers are women?
So I feel like it's now, I don't know. I would say there's a lot more females going to law school now, but I don't know honestly, I really don't know the statistics on it, but I think what it is there may be now more of like a closer to, I don't know, maybe 60-40 or 50-50, but I think what the difference is, women don't stay in the field as much, because like they may like, when they decide to have kids, like stop practice. A lot of them will like stop practicing for a little while and like stay home for a couple years, but then they'll come back, so I feel like there's a lot of that. There's also not a lot of women-owned law firms that like run a practice. I mean, there are, they are out there, of course, but like as an attorney, you either want to work for yourself or you don't. And so, the type that is going to work for themselves, I feel like we're all kind of similar in that way, but yeah, it's really hard. And then attorneys are really competitive with each other.
Absolutely.
So it's like you can't really, it's really hard to be like friends with anybody that's in family law and that is a business owner. I just feel like, I don't know if like medical school does that to people, but law school, it makes, we're graded on like a bell curve, like against each other. So I feel like out the gate, people were even just studying for things during law school, like don't want to see don't share stuff. Is it like that in medical school?
So I wouldn't say in medical school. I say in residency, what residents used to have is what's called a pyramidal program. So they would hire a ton of interns, so first year residents. And every year the number of spots to continue on would get smaller and smaller. And so that was, well, you're saying super competitive. It's like you got to be.
Oh, if you're not the best, you're out of there. What happens if you drop out of that?
Then you have to find another spot. And you might have to start all over. And so it was very competitive. And then, being a woman, as I always say, it's like you have to be twice as good as your male counterparts to be thought of as equal. And, my caveat to that is it's like a joke is, well, luckily that's not too hard to do. But I think that that definitely made it a lot of very competitive. And I think also women, even other female surgeons, are critical of each other because we've worked so hard to get where we are.
I think women are hard on each other.
Absolutely. But in that field, especially because if, let's say you're working, like if I was working with an oncologic breast surgeon who's a woman, you look at them and you say, okay, listen, make sure that they have the same work ethic that I do, same attention to detail that I do, because if you as a woman aren't pulling your weight, you're going to make the rest of us look bad, so everyone's looking to say, oh, well, she's not great. She's a woman, I don't know. Well, you just got to be great so that doesn't come up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think women are really hard on each other. I feel like there's the haters. There's a big group of haters, especially I hate to use that word, but it's true. Like, especially with female attorneys, there's so much, like, some of them are just, they're like, we have cases with them, they're just nasty, but it's like, they're coming from a place of like, almost like jealousy and being hard.
Or insecurity.
Yeah. I hate that. I really hate that.
I think that there's a point where I think I've made peace with this over the past probably 5 years, is that I don't have to change anybody else's mind about things. And I try to see a little bit more of where that person's coming from. So if someone's acting ugly towards me, I'll say, okay, well, what is going on with them? You know, I just have stopped saying it. Well, you know what? Yeah, okay, some people are just not going to like me. That's okay. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like me. It's fine. But I think that knowing that everybody has their stuff, everybody has something that's gone on. So let's say you're working with somebody and they come in and they're hot and they're angry, whatever, and it's their car didn't start, or their husband didn't do something right at home, or one of their kids is sick and they've had to scramble to get somebody to come over to be there, or they've been threatened by their boss that if they didn't win this case, they were going to be canned. You know, I think there's just so much that goes on that we women especially have to tamp down. Like, we're not supposed to be emotional. We're not supposed to have feelings. We're not supposed to have any kinds of signs of weakness. I think that that's the thing that keeps us from supporting each other more. It's like, I'm better than you because nothing bothers me. You know what? No, I'm not. Yeah. Show your weakness a little bit. Just let it be, because then the other person can respond in kind, you know?
Yeah. Like, let it, like, just being real with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. I think people don't want to show how they're feeling, but and then it comes off as,
because everybody wants to say, oh, she's just a bitch, or she's just ugly. She's mean. She's whatever.
But some people, I think, like, know they are that way.
Yes. And some people like that conflict.
And see, that's what I'm saying. See, a lot of attorneys are like that. Yeah. I feel like that's their MO in life. You know what I mean? That's how they, like, want to be in cases, and that they want to be perceived that way. They almost, like, market themselves that way as being aggressive. Right.
Well, I think that's what you probably as a client look for in a lawyer, a little bit. You want to see some of that.
Yeah. And so we'll have clients ask me that, like, can you be a bulldog? Can you be aggressive? And I'm like, okay, yes. But I always remind them that, okay, like, let's say we end up in court or something. The judge is a person. Like, if I go in there and I'm an asshole to everybody, judges don't like that. People think, like, clients think that judges like that. They don't. They actually think that's really rude, and they know that you're basically just putting on a show for your client, but it pretty much just annoys them. Yeah. And then the same thing with opposing counsel. Like, if I'm just rude as hell, honestly, what it does is it makes it harder for the case to go in, to settle, to have a better outcome. So I try to talk clients off that ledge a little bit. Like, okay, I know that sounds good in theory, but, like, let's really talk through what that's going to do for your case. Like, me being a complete you-know-what to the other attorney is not going to help you. It actually makes it harder. You're going to spend more money. Like, so I try to bring people back to reality a little bit, because on my last podcast, we were talking about this, like, using the legal system as, like, a way to hurt the other party. That's not the purpose of it. And so people that come in, if somebody's hiring us and wanting to do that, I either try to talk them in the right direction, or they need to seek other counsel, because we're not going to do that.
Well, you have to work with these other opposing counsels throughout your career. Like, so if you burn bridges with one case, they're going to be awful to you in further ones.
Yeah. And it's not for me. It's not so much that I care about that per se, but it's more about that's really going to hurt my client, because at the end of the day, that attorney is going to have to talk to their client and try to get, like, you want to be somewhat nice to them. We're trying to get them to give us stuff. So we want to, like, you get more, what's that? You get more honey with bees,
flies with honey and then vinegar.
Like, I mean, that just traditionally that just really doesn't work. You end up shooting yourself in the foot, and then nobody wants to work with you. But there are a lot of attorneys, like, mostly males, that are just known for that, like, just being a complete, but it's
tolerated more.
Yeah, I think it's tolerated more. Yeah, it is. It's tolerated more, but I do think it's tolerated more.
Same with men in surgery, like older male physicians that, oh, well, he's got terrible bedside manner, but he's an excellent surgeon. No, you have to have all of it. You don't need that. You don't need that. And I think that mindset has definitely changed over the years, that people are less likely to tolerate that kind of stuff.
See, I think bedside manner is like the most important thing for a doctor,
I
because
think it's very important.
I've been to doctors that I was actually, one of my C-sections with one of my kids, like, I told my doctor, I'm like, she was like, oh, my friend's it was like somebody in the other practice who was going to do your surgery. I'm like, no, no. I was like, she's not as nice as you. Yeah. She doesn't have that caring. Yeah. And I feel like if somebody doesn't have a great bedside manner, I don't think that they are going to be a better surgeon. I don't believe that.
I'd love to say that that's true, but I definitely have trained under some surgeons during fellowship that were just not people you'd ever want to have a meal with, but they were technically gifted.
Okay, and so you think they maybe they were, but not social.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, you think about like each field, it's not one personality that goes into a specific specialty. There's a cross section of humanity in every field. I mean, sometimes things are weeded out, but I think you got to deal with different types of personalities.
Yeah. So tell me, I know when we did our pre-production call, you were telling me about how you didn't initially want to do surgery on anybody that was getting separated or divorced.
Right.
So tell me about that.
So, when you're performing an elective procedure on somebody, you want them to be in a really good headspace. You want them to be very supported. You want them to have a good support system. You want them to be ready for the surgery, emotionally ready for the surgery, have clear expectations, and realistic expectations. Mm-hmm. And I think that my initial concern was that I didn't think it was the right thing to do to operate on somebody who was in the middle of an emotionally charged or challenging situation. Mm-hmm. Then,
like divorce or separation.
Being separated, or recently divorced. What are they doing it for? Like, are they trying to fix their marriage with this surgery? Is this going to change their life or with their circumstances by doing this surgery? And so that was a fear. I want you to know that's not going to do that. And then also, just, is this the right time in terms of the results? Like, if you're unhappy with what's going on in your life, are you going to actually be happy with your results? Because if they're not making that life change, is this the right time to do it? And so I thought I was protecting the patient. I thought I was trying to be a good physician and surgeon.
Like do no harm.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but I had several patients say to me, no, listen, this is the first time in my life that I can make a decision to do something for myself and make this change in my appearance without having to consult anybody else, without having to get anybody else's approval or acceptance of that. And so when I had several patients say that to me, I realized that rather than me protecting the patient, I was actually disempowering the patient with that. And so I've had a change in mindset about that. And so as long as the patient has a good support system, is emotionally stable and has realistic expectations, I'll do it. And I would tell you that is the patient population. They're like, finally, I've been wanting to do this for so long. Yeah. And my husband.
Oh, you think a lot of people that get surgery are divorcing or separating?
Not a lot, but there's a population of them.
They want to change.
They're like, you know what? I've hated this for so long, and my husband said, no, you can't do that, or I don't want you to change that, or my partner said that, and now they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. So what do you think is give me just like the top 3 things that you guys do, like cosmetic requests?
I mean, it's a little bit seasonal. So I think that we do a lot of facial rejuvenation surgeries. We do
like a facelift?
A facelift, but it could be an eyelid lift. It could be a mini facelift. It could be laser resurfacing. A lot of mommy makeovers. And it's not
tummy tuck.
With some kind of breast surgery.
Lift,
So either lift, augmentation, combination.
Got it.
But also now.
I need that. Well, I've had 4 kids. I needed the tummy tuck. I've talked to you about that. Yeah.
And I think the other thing now with all of these weight loss drugs, these patients are having these tremendous weight loss, significant changes in where someone may not have been even on a health basis ready or applicable to have surgery. Now they've lost all this weight, they have all this extra skin. So you're doing, it may not even be a mommy, you may just doing a makeover. but a lot more male patients
Getting
as well.
skin removed. Yeah. I've always been curious, can you remove skin on arms? Do you have some? Okay.
So it's a brachioplasty. It's a big scar, but it's a huge contour change.
Yeah. I think I've seen somebody at the gym with that, where it's like a scar like this.
You should go right around here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, are most of your clients female?
Yes. They still are, but it's ever increasing more and more male patients.
Mostly female. Have you ever seen somebody, has anybody ever come to you that was like botched from somebody else? Do you know what I mean? How you hear those horror stories?
I wouldn't call, so when you do surgery on somebody, how they heal is totally dependent on overall health of the patient and just, we're not machines. Everybody heals differently. So underlying medical conditions, age of the patient, weight of the patient, activity level of the patient, medications that they're on, are they a smoker, do they a previous smoker, all those things. So it's not just technically what's going on in the OR results in that result. Okay. So now,
so you think some of those people that look crazy, it's not from the surgeon?
It's not necessarily that. And here's what else happens. Somebody may go to a surgeon and say, I want this. And that surgeon says, no, I'm not going to do that. So then
Why
they go.
Why would they say no?
Because it's not the right thing to do. Okay. It might not be.
Can you guys say that?
Always say no all the time. I say no all the time. My husband has this great thing. He says, here's the criteria for me being able to operate on you. 1, you have to be clear on what it is that bothers you. Number 2, I have to be able to see it. Number 3, I have to be able to think I can make it better. And number 4, I have to like you. Because you are that patient's surgeon forever. Like forever.
Is it like a lot, like you worry about them, like, so like for us, we have like ethical things. We have to check the boxes. Is it like kind of that where or is it more of just you're worried about somebody coming back and being like, you ruined my...
No, I think it's you have to have a good personality match. Now, with my reconstruction patients, if someone is going to have a mastectomy or has had a mastectomy and they're referred by another surgeon, I have a wider field of being able to say yes. Because when you're probably similar to when you have patients that are in the middle of a divorce, what their personality is or what they're dealing with, that emotion is different. Like you got a cancer diagnosis, you don't have a lot of fluff in your life. You're trying to just make it through that day. So I have a wider acceptance of a little bit, I guess I would say a little crazy, you know? But if you're electively choosing to do a cosmetic procedure, I think you have to have a good personality.
Well, tell me, like, okay, what's an example of something you would say no to?
Let's say somebody has had multiple, breast surgeries, and there is very minimal asymmetry between the breasts, tiny little thing, and they want to be perfectly symmetric.
Oh, okay.
And you're like, you know what? Nobody is. I look at breasts all day. Nobody is. You know, post-op, pre-op, whatever. Nobody is. I think if someone is rude to or demanding to my nurses or my staff, that's a no-go. Because if you can't treat the people around you that are going to be responsible for getting your calls and your information to me, then that's not the good fit either.
Yeah, we have people like that too. Like we basically fire clients if they are, and it's in our contract, if they're like uncooperative, things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which and it's good, but sometimes you don't know.
You don't know.
Until.
Right.
Yeah. Like, and for us, like we're in a case, like we've made an appearance or there's a lawsuit pending, and then it's hard for us to get out of a case.
Right.
Like a judge we have to like file a motion withdraw, and a judge has to sign it and all this crap. And so it's, that happens a lot, and it's hard, but that's interesting. Yeah. I guess so you have people that are like seeking perfection that's like not attainable.
Or just unrealistic expectations. Not even necessarily perfection. It's just something, I mean, you think people will say, well, why did this movie star get such a crummy eyelid lift or a bad facelift? Well, probably they got a good facelift, and then they went to somebody else and said, I want something more. And then that surgeon was like, oh, I want to have so-and-so as my patient. And then they're willing to do it. You think of Michael Jackson. I mean, how many times was his poor nose operated on? I mean, you
I know.
get to a point where you can't.
So
do
not
anymore.
all surgeons it's not like an ethical thing where you have to like, okay, no. Like it's just, you can decide to do that.
I mean, I think it's an ethical thing, but I think everybody's
Yeah.
ethics are maybe a little bit different.
Yeah.
Or their tolerance of crazy is a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know?
But it's not like when you guys get out of medical, it's not like this is what
No.
is, you know what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah. Our ethics are like that too, in a way. And we email the bar all the time. We're like, this is a situation. What should we do just to cover our butts? Because, you know, like if we have a client that's like, seems like they're not mentally, just there's a million and one things that come up, and we have to check in with ethics a lot. We just make sure we do that. And they usually, what's really annoying, they'll just point us to like a rule. Here's this professional conduct rule. 1.0.
Right.
Very rarely do they give specific pointed advice. Do they do that to y'all? Are there like a code of ethics for you guys?
I mean, yeah, we have a code of ethics, but it's so nebulous
like
on
open
all these little
interpretation.
things.
Yeah. I feel like attorneys are probably more afraid of that kind of stuff than doctors are.
Oh no, well, we're terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be anything because there's no recourse for a patient could make a complaint to the medical board. They don't have to give their name. They don't have to give any information, nothing. But that's open to now the physician's responsible for defending that.
I always heard that it's really hard to win one of those.
But to win against a physician?
Like for a client, I always heard that like nobody really files those, that like it's just
I wish that were true. But I mean, you see, what is it called? The injury attorneys. I mean, they've got billboards all over the place.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You know,
that's true.
And so, what do you think of those? Like, how did those people pan out?
I don't know. I really don't know. Like, and I did personal injury like a long time ago, like as a paralegal. I don't know, but I've always heard that medical malpractice was really hard to prove. It's kind of like if somebody wants to sue a lawyer, it's hard to prove that like that standard of care was. I think it's just like a high burden for somebody. And then I think it's also, so that's what I know about it. I don't,
but what are the personalities of people that do that? Like
that
lawyers.
that would do personal injury. Any
of them?
It's like doing it's like, that's like car accident stuff too.
Yeah.
It's the same area of law. So.
Like, do you have a different, like I think of.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like a different respect.
I don't think they think about it that way.
Mm.
I think honestly, I feel like PI and med mal is really boring. Because it's just like paperwork. Most of those settle outside of court. Yeah, I just feel like they're kind of more nerdy, probably. Not as personal.
Yeah.
That's I feel like most of the PI attorneys that I think of are just kind of a little nerdy, quiet. But I don't hear about medical malpractice stuff. I don't think it's very common.
What it does, like it's what it might not go to, but the damage that it does.
Yeah, it probably scares people. When I think of med mal, I think of like somebody leaving a sponge inside of your. Right.
And I think that's
during surgery.
Yeah. And I think that's a legitimate claim, but I think that's probably 1 out of 1,000.
Yeah. Like when I was having my C-sections, because you're awake, I hear them.
You hear them counting?
Counting instruments. They're making sure that they that they don't sew me up with a gauze inside.
They do a count every time someone switches in and out of the OR. So it's not just at the, like, let's say your scrub tech, the one that's helping you hand instruments. If she is going on a lunch break, they do a full count of everything before they leave the room.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end of the case, absolutely full count before you're closed. Like you can't close until that full count is done.
I know, it's so crazy, like, because when having a C-section, you get and you're wide awake. It's like, they're just talking about, what are you doing this weekend? Like, it's very strange. I know. Being put to sleep scares me.
Yeah?
Isn't it like, do you think it's dangerous?
No. I think it depends. If you don't have underlying health issues and the surgery is, within a certain time period, like a shorter length surgery, I think it's pretty nominal, and it depends on the anesthetic agents.
Yeah.
Too.
Isn't there like risks of blood clot, or is that?
There are. So you put kind of put what's called SCDs, sequential compression devices
I've
on
had
legs.
those when I
to
had the
squeeze.
C-sections. Yeah. They just like
Yep.
squeeze your leg every.
Get things
Yeah.
pumping through.
Well, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. And we'll definitely have you back to talk about other real interesting topics. So if there's a client that's interested in finding you, how do they find you?
I think the easiest way is to go to criswellandcriswell.com, our website. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Criswell Plastics. But we have amazing staff, people that will get people set up with appointments or answer questions. We have a great med spa as well. So.
Oh yeah, we like the med. I've been to the med spa, so we'll tag you on this video.
Okay.
So okay.
Great.
Well, thanks
Thank
for coming.
you.
Yeah.